Episode 3 of the No Limit Sports Podcast. You have myself, Drew Crosby. I have my partner alongside me, Kiari Schuler. And alongside us, we have Mark Davis as well. We're going to talk about a few things today, and one of the biggest things is NFL schedule has just dropped.
It sure has, guys. And you know what? I think a lot of us are curious about how will the Commanders do now that they have pressure on them, right? That target is there.
Yes.
And how are they going to do? And Drew, you brought up the schedule. And this schedule shows this team is back. There are expectations. 5 primetime games. An international trip, the first one in 9 years since 2016 in London. Christmas Day game. And they have, let's see what else, 10 nationally televised games. I was reading off Nikki from the Washington Post. She had it listed right here for us, all nice and that. But I'll tell you what, the Christmas Day one against Dallas, what a holiday present for football fans, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because December, right, playoffs are a little bit, within reach. Games are a little more crucial. I like this. So I'm looking at this schedule, and I'm like, man, but they have the primetime games, 5 of them after, I want to say the only one they had last year was the one that was flexed in late in the season. That just shows the jump this team's made.
Right. No, absolutely. Again, right now it seems like not only for the fans, but, inside the office with the Commanders feel right now, they're really strong. They're feeling really strong about what's to come, even with the renovations and things like that, and, biting on different opportunities within scheduling and, putting it up, putting it in the forefront, putting it in their face. So it's going to be really good to see how this unfolds for them, honestly.
Are you guys? We just got this schedule at the time of recording, so I'm curious. As you look down this, are there any that really jump out at you? I think the Detroit home game to me. Obviously, the division games are cool, right? But you look at that Detroit home game, remembering back to that playoff, high scoring affair they had this past January. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely, and I would just say, being a fan of NFC East. I apologize. Being a fan in the NFC East, and if you watch the earlier podcast, you'll know which team, I'm a fan of and whatnot. But seeing that, of course, they're starting to favor, having those bigger games towards the end, especially having Philadelphia at 16 and 18 this season.
Yep.
I'm definitely seeing that they're knowing where they're going. They know what they're doing, anticipating that type of game coming up. So for me, that's always a big one. Those big division games. But again, the home game in Detroit, I think it's an early game as well in Green Bay to see how that comes out. That'd be a good way to measure as well.
Too.
For sure. And then Amazon Prime is picking up that one. So again, those are the little things that you can tell that these are going to be good games to watch.
Yeah. How about you, Keith? You're a Dallas guy, right? So any beyond the Dallas games jump out to you? I'm curious.
I like to see Washington go to Madrid. Playing the stadium.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they have that game in that stadium if they weren't as good as they were last season. So it's good to see the NFL, give them special treatment. But yeah, that game I like the Thursday night football against Green Bay. That could be a playoff game early on, depending on how the teams, how the schedule go out. Some teams don't play the same as they do the last year. So the schedule's pretty even. It's not too hard, based off last year. It's not too easy. But I like the last 4 weeks: Giants, Philly, Cowboys, Eagles, back to back to back.
I'm glad you pointed that out. The last 4-week division gauntlet there. Yeah.
See, I was aiming towards that.
Yes, and the Kansas City Chiefs Monday Night Football game at Kansas City is going to be a really, really good one. So I like that. Just seeing the week one, I want to see what which quarterback starts for the New York Giants also versus Washington. They have Jackson Dart. They have Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson there. So it's going to be It's going to be definitely a good one. I want to see that one for sure. I like the whole schedule. Every week is a good game, like something special every week. I don't really see any sleepers up here, to be honest.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Drew.
No, I was saying that was a great way to say it. And just to add into that, a lot of people talk about the type of talent and opportunities that were in the draft and, what they think about it, whether it was yay or nay and things like that. But I think that the draft panned out pretty well.
Yeah,
For me now, it looks like, again, you can be one-sided when you're an NFC East fan or any type of fan, right? But, just to see how this lines up and as we're actually looking at it and seeing how, they will be tested throughout this season, it puts it in a place where it's a possibility for any given Sunday type of situation. Any given, somebody can excel and somebody can decline, but, everybody has made additions, and I think Commanders did really well on, in their offseason as well. They like to say that they're, they've had a better offseason than most in the NFC. So again, I would definitely want to see how they put it together and how that test looks as they go along. So it's gonna be good.
I like that's crazy though, right? Week 1, Giants. 13 weeks with no division opponents, and then you end with 4 straight. Wait, do I have that right? No, I'm sorry. Week 7, Dallas. I retract. My fault, everybody.
Yeah.
But that's going to be fun to see how that shapes up. And you guys are exactly right that there's a lot of intriguing matchups on there. And the Spain one, I'm curious about too, Key. Definitely, I think that's going to be fun to see how they can go over there and represent. 9:30 a.m. Set your alarms for that one on November 16th. So we're keeping an eye on that, and they'll start OTAs at the end of the month. But closer to home. It's like these high school teams don't rest anymore either.
Yes. Oh, it's been constant with these guys. And I mean, again, the game is evolving. The game is evolving across the United States. I mean, across the world right now. But let alone is doing it pretty big in our area. And again, there's some exciting things, and we'll be talking about in some podcasts to come a little bit of the rule changes and how that affect. But we'll be talking about tonight just a few of the cool things about it. So as we go into the off season, and we've been a few college days and whatnot, gotten to see what kids found new homes indoor, have progressed and kind of advanced themselves in where they already were. We started to look at it like, okay, we can't really put a record on it yet, but you can start to maybe label them as some sleeper teams.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about that a little bit, if you guys don't mind. So for me, it was a lot of course, transfers and a lot of shifts and things happening for the good. And so for myself, when I talk about sleeper teams, it's not necessarily a team that I think is just you're going to all out come from the bottom and win a ring this season, but more so that's the team that has that plus 500 record. That's that team that is in position to maybe cause some upsets or a little bit of shifts in the bracket and whatnot. So when we talk about that, what comes to your mind when you think about sleeper teams?
When I think about sleeper teams, I think about teams who been in dogfights with the good teams, but the good teams just pulled away. They were just as talented. Either they were too young or just just a few mistakes happened, a few young mistakes, and teams just kept going. Like they just kept scoring on them, or they just couldn't stop them at a certain point, or the mistakes. It was just too many mistakes. So sleeper teams are like they're playoff teams, and they can compete, at a high level. Just not the first, like not the full 4 quarters.
Maybe like one step away.
Yeah, be one step away, one interception, one fumble, something like that. And it happens multiple times throughout the season because of inexperience. So I think a few teams I have, the first one I got Bethel. I like what Coach Porter's putting together over there. He has transfer quarterback from Warwick and Alex Lewis. Real tall, accurate guy. He's very accurate. He was behind Saeed Williams over there. I mean, it's a good reason Saeed Williams is showing out over there at Warwick. They're going to be good too. I think Bethel would definitely make a good playoff run. I see them in games against Hampton, in games against Phoebus. They have a 4-star over there in Derek Fisher, a running back Amari Pryor. They have a lot of weapons. A kid named Tone over there, a good DB. They have a good line. I think they can get to the playoffs. They're in a hard class though.
Yeah, they are.
Maury and Nazareth River, and that's the Nazareth River's team I'm about to get on too. That's another.
Kings Fork's in there too.
Yep, Kings Fork. It's a lot of good teams, and that Warwick themselves too is there. So that'll be a great matchup to see him go play Warwick in the playoffs. I mean, he actually played them twice if that's a thing. But the second team I have is I'm give you about 3 or 4. Second team is Nazareth River. They loaded up. They actually stayed in good games last year with Kings Fork and
should have had them in the regular season. I mean, you could argue, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe the playoffs too a little bit. But they went to like 3 overtimes, something like that, in the regular season. But yeah, they always compete. Like they have great coaching. I love the coaches over there. They have great coaching. No matter who's on the roster, no matter what teams show up, like they don't even need superstars. They have great coaching over there. They always in it. They always in it against a Smith, against Kings Fork, against the Indian River. They're going to compete. Everyone had them losing to Indian River and a whole bunch of other teams that just had them blown out and just counted them out. But Tyrell Grant Jr. over there and Tavon Douglas over there is great. Like they're a great combo. And I've been watching them since they were freshmen, especially Tavon Douglas. Like he's he's a dog. I like Tavon Douglas, and they added Jamari and Kings Fork receiver Keontae Bumpers, so they're looking really, really good. And I can't wait. I actually can't wait to see that game's going to be packed. And River versus Kings Fork is going to be packed. It was packed last year. It's always packed actually, but I can't wait to see it. So yeah, that's it's my sleepers.
I mean, and we talked earlier. That was kind of like we kind of got pretty much the same sleepers as it rolls out. And one of the ones when I talked to you this morning, one of the ones I brought up because I didn't know exactly who was the coach at Petersburg High School. And I just love the moves that they're making anyway. Just from the athletic point of view, they got a new athletic director over there, and he's really not prioritizing, but he really loves the sports over there. So you can see the love for it starting to build over there, basketball wise, and just connecting with Coach Jerome Mathis. Shout out Coach Mathis as well. I think that they have the right tools that they need, in the area that they're in to make a lot more noise than what they were. So again, it's not always about a team just going all the way there, but just having teams like that are somewhere in the woods somewhere, but they can poke their head out every once in a while. I would like to see that happen, and I think that they have the tools as well. So I second most of the sleeper teams that he's come up with as well. I just think that just like how we talked about in the NFL, it's a lot of moves happening here in high school, just like it is college. And again, it's a lot of teams. It's not going to be just one team that we name here tonight. It's going to be a few that we find that are sleeper teams, like your Indian Rivers and like all the teams that follow along as well. You don't sleep on them, right?
Yeah.
Sleeper teams, but you don't sleep on them. So again, that was a good one, and he kind of took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, well, and like you guys said, I mean, like there are so many teams here that it's not necessarily are you getting to the playoffs, it's are you improving. To me, there's kind of two prongs here. One is who's going to come out of nowhere and, with who we didn't expect, right? That was Granby a couple years ago. I mean, maybe with their moves, you kind of saw it coming preseason, but going 9-1 after not winning a game since 2019 or whatever it was, I mean, that was impressive. But the second part of it is are teams who started to make those moves, are they going to make another step up? Ocean Lakes, for example. Ocean Lakes, I think they started out 5-0, 4-0 or 5-0 this past year. Can they take the next step, get over 500, and get there? Denby, obviously winning 2 games last year after a winless season. Can they take another step and get closer to 500? That's a sleeper team to me,
Absolutely.
too, taking that next step. You're always going to have your Maurys, Oscar Smiths, your Kings Forks who are right there, your Phoebuses who are right there, right? I mean, Lake Taylor, I guess they fell off a little bit last year, but they were there for a while in Class 3. But who's going to be that team and maybe it'll be Lake Taylor again this year to make a turnaround after a disappointing season. But, Ocean Lakes is one that I'm curious about in the beach because Green Run has kind of owned the beach right there. No offense, Coach Williams. Should have mentioned you there with that first group. But who in the beach is going to challenge them, right? Salem, what are they going to do after losing so many guys? At quarterback and running back specifically. How are these teams in the beach going to challenge Green Run? How's Green Run going to reload? How is Maury going to reload? We have all these questions, which I think is what makes it fun. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But as far as sleeper teams go, I'm just really. I get excited to see who's going to be in that win column a couple times.
Absolutely.
Where we're going to be like, hey, wait a second, I don't know if I saw that coming, But look at that's what I'm looking for going into this season. Can some teams take the next step? And what teams are going to come out of nowhere and kind of shock the world, so to speak.
No, absolutely. And I'm right there with you. I'm all about I'm all about the Cinderella story. As long as it isn't against my parlay. And no, I don't bet. I don't bet on high school sports. But again, just jokingly saying, if it's not against those types of odds or anything like that. Of course, I would love to see that Cinderella story as well as a team that we expect to win. I mean, both outcomes with me is perfectly fine. I think that's what makes us who we are as well. Just being able to look at the good, whether it is a team that has win 0-9, or a team that has win 9-0. Whatever that looks like. Just being able to to find the light in that is always good for us. But somebody has to win, somebody has to lose, and again, I'm all about that underdog. Everybody loves that underdog story. So again. Yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
Well, and so much of it comes down to coaching too, right? I mean, like, you mentioned Rick's at Ninsman River. I mean, you mentioned, you have Joe Freon at Kings Fork. Yeah, obviously Dree up at Maury. Chris Scott at Oscar Smith. Williams over at Green. You have these guys that just know how to coach and know how to get the best out of their kids. And I was just scratching the surface there. We have so many good coaches in this area, right? But you have these leaders who can separate themselves because they bring these kids up in the way that they want them to, in their, like the Maury way, let's say. They bring them up in the Maury way, through JV, through middle school. And then, by the time they get there, the culture is set and the expectation there is set. So for these other teams, can they get a coach that is going to do the same thing? Because I think that's where the blueprint starts in building that culture and building that success.
Well, I mean, it changes, and I want to let you go too as well. But just to add to that, we're used to players transferring. Of course, as the years have progressed, it's been more and more. But now you're not seeing a lot of stories of that coach that has been there as long as Mike Smith at Hampton High School. So again, not only is it a culture switch when a kid is going from school to school, but that school as well might need or maybe sometimes they need to keep it the same, or sometimes you're at that program where that culture switch is needed. And we've seen a lot of examples of where that's definitely worked out in some schools' way, and then for some schools it may be stagnant or it's a little bit more challenging to get off the ground. But again, the culture, I like that you use that word. That's what it's all about, really. You can see a player do a whole 180, just behind the culture switch and being around the type of players that he is. And, again, I think that's a big part. I think that's a big part, the culture, the team, and all, the coaching, all of that stuff, all around for sure.
Yeah, and I agree. I think a lot of the culture is, we're in a day and age where kids want to win.
Yeah.
Like, it's a winning culture. In offer culture, like, these kids want to be recruited.
Right.
So, I mean, we're just in an area like, kids have 4 years. You have 4 years to get it right. So, I mean, transferring is good and bad because you want the teams to be even, in the area, and you want teams to, grow up in a certain area and come all the way up from middle school all the way to high school. But, some kids, you got one life. Kids got one life. So a lot of kids want to, I need to go to this school because I know it's a missing spot, and like, this person just graduated, so I want to go over here and get that position so I can start this school because they have a lot of exposure and they're winning. I have a chance to get a ring and go to school. So I mean, it's a good and bad thing. I don't think kids should be restricted from, going to a certain school. Yeah. I'm not too many times. I think there should be a rule like you can't do it twice. Maybe one time, not twice, or something like that. But culture is a big reason why these kids want to go to a school that's winning and putting kids into college. But yeah, just like a whole bunch of kids going to one school, like, I understand that stopping that. But just a few kids want to go there. Just like I said, you only got 4 years of high school, so like I completely understand like why kids want to go to winning cultures and schools that the kids are getting offers, and they see their friends are getting offers. So, like, just imagine, like, 757 is not too big. These kids know each other now. I'm be honest, Sportsbook may be a good reason, since it was created. We bridged, the gap between, the South Side and the Peninsula, and, now, kids know each other from across the water now through social media, and everyone knows each other. So, like, I mean, kids, it's not really a jealousy thing. They happy for them, but they want to go. They want to go too. They want to go to school too. And no one wants to just miss out. These kids don't want to miss out.
Well, how much of this falls on the schools, though, too, right? How much of this falls on the school's program to make sure you're getting somebody in there that's going to give your kids the best opportunity? I think some of the responsibility has to lie there, too, right? I mean, like, get somebody in. I mean, you're right. I mean, you're exactly right, Key. I mean, there are coaches who are doing their 110% to make sure their kids are getting looks. So some of this has to be, we're going to create an environment here. If we might go 5-5, but even if we do, we're still going to get you out there, just like the team that went 10-0 did.
No, absolutely.
You know what I mean? I think part of that falls on the schools and the coaches, right? I mean, like if a school's hiring you with a responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
you're not just preparing them for this 4 years in the football game. You're preparing them for life. You're preparing them to go to the next level. And those kids that have that potential, I think they should be able to have that no matter where they live, without having to move or change apartment complexes so they can go to a different school or whatever the case may be. They should have that. They should have all those opportunities. Should and what actually is. I don't live in a fantasy world. I totally get it, right? But I mean, like, some of the responsibility, I think there lies on the coaches and the schools themselves to put their kids in that position.
No, absolutely, and he spoke about it earlier. Kids are we're in the microwave era, of course. Kids want to win right now, and they want to go to school right now. And sometimes when you hear that statement being spoken, especially locally, I feel like sometimes there's a divide in between them. Like, it's like win right now and go to school right now. And sometimes you can have the best of both worlds. And again, winning is important. I think that winning does strengthen the opportunity for you and your teammates to get the opportunity. I mean, get the exposure that you need to be picked up by said college. But at the same time, it's not just X's and O's. There are definitely things that you have to do to, or that you want to do to get yourself above the curve. Because again, you are that one kid that are maybe waiting for that senior to graduate and or for somebody to transfer out. But you got to remember, you're not the only athlete as well. There's somebody else that's waiting for that same position.
There's the grass isn't always greener thing here, because you could transfer with the hopes of winning. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? I mean, if you go to the right school, it probably will, but you're not the only athlete at that school.
No, absolutely not.
And you never know what can happen, right?
For sure.
Injuries happen all the time. XYZ happens. All these variables that can happen where, hey, you may make a move and it may not work out, like you'd want it to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a gray area, and they're trying to do the right thing.
For sure.
I think or a lot of people are trying to do the right thing. But I like competitiveness, right?
Yes.
Like I don't like looking down a schedule and being like, well, we can kind of chalk this up.
Yeah.
Now some of that is for the reason of hey, I mean, this team's just that good and they've built themselves, and but that's also kind of fun, like a little slaying the dragon opportunity for other teams, right?
Yes.
But yeah, it's the argument you can have, and till you're blue in the face. But yeah, at the end of the day, like I said, I think a lot of this comes down to culture and coaches building them the best opportunity for their players, to get their eyes on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you guys, right? I mean, like, you guys have done a heck of a job getting, so as you mentioned, getting some of these players out there and getting them looks and putting some videos out there and all that stuff.
When I tell you anything that we can do to get them exposure or shed some light on an organization or anything like that's what I'll do. And again, this when I'm in this space, sometimes we can have our opinions and we can be on a podcast about different teams and whatnot. For me, when I'm out there, I don't care if you're the player that just dropped the ball, the player that just got juked out his socks or whatever. When that college coach comes to me like, hey, he was on the field. He might have some, a few things that he needs to work on, but you got you a good kid there. That's just who I am. You know what I mean? And of course, I would check him out to make sure that I'm giving, accurate information. But I mean, solely like, from my heart though, that's where I'm at. Anything that I can do to get him in that space with that coach. I mean, what the coach decides to do from there and what he decides to present as an athlete, as a business owner, essentially, because your body is a business when you're going into college, right? Where he, what he chooses to present to that coach or whoever it is that he sits down with, that that's on him after that. You know what I mean? So anything that I can do to help bridge that gap, I'm all for it. And so, just talking about those teams that we talked about a little bit, I know one of the more topics that we wanted to go over just before we wrapped it up is a few of the teams that, we, of course, we know and love. They had some great seasons. We definitely have 3 of them just coming off a state championship this past fall, 1 being Phoebus, 2 Maury, and 3 is Oscar Smith, right? And of course, I don't want to put them at the end, but that's not in any type of order, so I don't want nobody fishing for anything. But nonetheless, Phoebus, Oscar Smith, and Maury. There's a lot of talks. Of course, these teams continue to build, continue to have great off seasons as well. I'm loving what they're doing. Love all 3 coaches, and I believe that they got some time. They're going to continue to be successful. But Key, when we talk about Maury, Phoebus, and Oscar Smith, of course, just starting with Maury, what's some of the things that you think? Because I know we covered them a lot, Mark, I want to hear from you as well, but we covered them a lot last season, in the season before as well. What's some of the things that you think that Maury is going to have to focus on to continue to be, Maury?
Offensive production. They're replacing, thousands of yards of production with
Everybody.
Bond, Torrey Newkirk, Leon Clark Jr. Third. It's a lot of guys.
Yeah.
A lot of guys leaving, but they also replacing them with dogs. Damo Everett, the little brother of Dylan Everett at Georgia. You have Tayshaun Branch is still there, running back. He's
goodness.
a problem.
Definitely.
You still got Elijah at receiver. You still got a lot of players there, a lot of stars. They always had stars every year. They have nationally ranked players on top of nationally ranked players. So this year, they're just young on offense, and their defense is still there. They still got Hunt, McDonald. They still got a linebacker core still there. Just missing Ari. There's just a lot of missing pieces at the defensive line, but I think they will still be as dominant as they are. And McCain is going to he's going to have them ready.
Yeah,
he's going to have them ready for the season. So that's one of the teams. I'm not so I'm not so hard on them this year. I still feel like they're going to be dominant. If they have one more dominant, it's this year. If it's one more year, it's definitely this year. They're still going to be dominant. They're still going to be Maury. Secondary is looking good. Everything's still looking good to me. So it's not really too many concerns. We're just going to see how Damo performs this year. That's it. It goes through him. It goes through him and Tayshaun. Maury's. Going to see a Maury still about 40 this year.
Thoughts on Maury?
Yeah, I think they're a reload, not rebuild team, right? And this goes back to the culture I was talking about. The way these kids are good players who are waiting their turns and were waiting behind, and now they get their chance to do it. And one of the good things about what they've been able to do is a lot of these kids have quite a few high school minutes under their belt because they've been able to get in when they're playing some of these teams that they go ahead and take care of pretty quickly, right? So it may look to a lot of people like inexperience, but I think they're probably a more inexperienced team, if that makes sense, right?
Absolutely.
They may not be the names that you recognize, but a lot of these guys have probably gotten onto the field.
Absolutely.
And I was talking to Coach McCain about this. I want to say it might have been towards the end of last season. And I asked him, I said, how do you keep your guys focused when you're winning games by this amount? And he said, hey, listen, people are always watching you. You're carrying yourself a certain way out there. Do you want to be known as the kid who let off the gas because you were winning big, or do you want to be known as the kid as when you're getting your opportunity, you're going in there and getting it done? And I think, all three of these teams that you mentioned, Drew, are teams that are reloading and not rebuilding. You know what I mean? And Maury is certainly one of those, and I think we're going to see them, be good once again.
That was a good point that you brought up too. Maury has been blessed to have the offense to be able to give the ball back quickly to their defense, and of course that results in a lot of points for the offense and ultimately results in other guys, younger guys, getting a chance to get on the field. With that being said, they get a lot of chances in game to see what these guys are like, going into the next year. Not just practices, not just scrimmages, but like real in game. And we've seen a lot of guys like Tayshaun Branch when he was young. I think he was when I first started seeing him run the ball. He was the third string running back, and he's nothing short of RB1 now.
Yep.
And they got some problems over there, and that's good. And again, it's good to have these young guys coming in, develop under older guys that are probably young themselves, and be able to build that up for seasons to come. But they're not the only young ones. You know what I mean? You got a shot caller, class of 2027, heading over at Oscar Smith right now. He's the general of the offense. You got somebody, it's the same class, right? If I'm not mistaken, Travis Johnson, 2026, right? These are younger guys who you probably would have thought who were upperclassmen just last season. So again, Oscar Smith has that edge that they're going to be able to make a lot of noise again within their conference for the Class 6 as well. I love the defensive line that they had. They had two freshmen on their sideline. I cannot remember the names, but I think it was like number 48 maybe. Excuse me, and I know number 99 was a D tackle as well. I just like it. I love it. I love how they were able to be dominant last season. I'm looking forward to seeing how they come out. With Koval out at cornerback as well, and just having a few pieces that they can utilize. I'm going to be excited to see what the Tigers can do. And did you want to speak on that?
Yes. Oscar Smith, I honestly, in personal opinion, they can be the number one team in the 757 this year, maybe a statement because they have a lot of the most return production out of everyone.
For
the
sure.
most firepower. They have Lonnie Andrews, Trey Jones. They have Travis Johnson coming back. They have Tajay Curtis coming
Shout
back.
out
So
Tajay.
that's a lot of almost the whole line on offense and defense is returning. So I just see them definitely dominating this year in their district and in the playoffs. I do see a repeat in the future. My only concern with them is their secondary, losing DeLoach and Dabbs, but they still have Jada Koval and Dupree still there, Breon Dupree. So the linebackers still there. Except about one. I think one is graduating.
Number 11, right?
Yeah, number 11 is graduating. He was a dog too. But I like them. I like them this year. I don't really see too many problems. They still got Lonnie, the superstar. So, and shout out to him. He's now 4-star, nationally ranked on all platforms.
Yep.
Shout out to him. So, but yeah, I see most likely out of all of them. I see most likely a repeat from Smith.
It's good
with Highland Springs going to the Class 5 now also.
Don't you wish? I mean, I think a lot of programs wish that their hiccups were like 8-4, and you know what I mean? Because if you think about it, they won those 2 titles in 2021. 2022, they went 10-0, but then they lost to Western Branch in the second round, and then 23, they lost in the second round as well. I think they beat Glen Allen in the first round, and that was seen as a down year. I think a lot of programs would love for a down year to be the second round of the playoffs and 8 wins. You know what I mean?
I mean that just comes from setting the bar so high,
Yep.
and then that's why teams like Oscar Smith themselves again and Maury and Phoebus have that type of pressure, you know what I mean? And they're not in that conversation of win now because it's something that they're doing, they've already done, but like because it's happening for them currently, they just got off of it. It's expected that you are aiming to keep that same trend going. You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't want to fall any lower. So again, you got a lot of teams that are on a win now type of standard, and they're trying to get there. And then you got teams like Oscar Smiths and Phoebus and Maury's, of course, that are trying to stay there and doing anything that they can to stay there. So it's going to be big. And that last one is
Phoebus.
Phoebus.
I mean, until someone beats them, right? I mean, like you can't. I mean, they're. You talk about reloading. That's all they do, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
yes,
and I get on that. Definitely reloading. And the main thing with them, I see that their young guys always step up. Their young guys always step up. 2025, class 2025, their biggest class always stepped up. And from freshman year, a lot of them were starting all the way to senior year. So, I mean, with those guys gone, I still see a couple players who I think will step up in Cam Tillery and Mekhi Hill. I like him. I think Marikis definitely going to step up as a leader even more this year. And I like to see him, throw the ball. Like, with Davion Roberts gone, he would definitely have to pass the ball this year, especially in when the playoff time comes. We all know Phoebus making the playoffs, but just my concern with them this year, they're young and inexperienced on the line and the secondary. Like they're definitely replacing almost everything: linebacker core, the running back, receivers. There's really only thing that look like is promising, or not promising. Only thing that look like is like for sure is Marikis and the running back. I think the running back will most likely be 7.
Diggs.
Yeah, Diggs. I think Tyree Diggs will most likely be the running back. But, I mean, other than him, everyone is, like, brand new and starting, on the team. I just want to see the identity of their offense. I know their defense will be there. It's Coach Blunt. He always find a way. And Phoebus always finds a way to have a random star come out of nowhere, like Noah James from last year and and Ramir Smith, like they came out of nowhere last 2 years. So that's that. But I think out of the 3, Phoebus is the one that scares me the most because Rhinos returned their whole team. So and they're going to definitely be on a revenge tour.
Yeah,
sure, going through that schedule and in the playoffs. So I'm excited to see this season and the parity that comes from it. Through all these teams.
Needless to say, I will not base that that competition off of the state championship game either. Like you said, it's a lot of hungry young guys coming from Verona that are going to be on that revenge tour. They're out for that vengeance as well. But again, that's nothing that Phoebus isn't prepared for. They never shied away from being able to protect their own, and I respect that. And so for Marikis, it's a lot of questions of seeing what he's going to do now as they're rebuilding and they start to change up the tools a little bit. Again, again, and I don't think Maurice's ever had a chance to throw for Jordan Bass, of course, but, for having bigger, did he, right?
No.
He didn't, right? So for his bigger targets, when you start to get like your Nolan James and your Romere Smiths who come out of nowhere, really, these are great targets, by the way, but also big targets. So to see what it looks like for him to start to be able to use, just more of his athletes and, get that ball in the air, they won't have to rely on the run too much. I think that they're finding their way right back where they wanted to be. And again, that's something that we saw in the state championship game, where that run game for them really, it kept it alive.
Yep.
It really kept it alive. I'm not saying that they couldn't get it done in the air, of course, but that run game definitely gave them the momentum that they needed, and Davion Roberts was sure to deliver on that. So again, I see a lot of great things, promising things coming from them. I like their line. Like you said, I like everything. And again, that's one of those things where you may not know all the moves that a school like Phoebus is doing. You may not know all the roster changes, but you believe in someone like Coach Blunt and his staff to be able to pull it all together and put out a well-polished product. So I'm looking forward to that.
It's going to be August before we know it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So,
my last take on that is it's going to be a very challenging year for them, but Coach Blunt always finds a way to win. Even in their own district, like Warwick is still loaded. Their young guys are now older. They're maybe their age is probably range higher than Phoebus now. With Marcus Hobson gone. Just a lot of stars. Caleb Tillery, Brendan Thompson. That's a lot of talent leaving. Yeah. So it's definitely going to be a coach Coach Blunt is definitely going to coach him up this year. Like, it's in his hands, it's in Maurice's hands. I definitely can't wait to see it this season.
You know where to check it out. I mean, everything that'll be going on, anything that's public, anything worth sharing, you know where to check us out on all platforms. Sports Plug 757. And we do a lot of collaborations with our friends. We love them over here at WTKR as well. We're going to be doing a lot of things. You're bringing a lot of information to you guys right to the palm of your hand, and I think it's going to be real fun putting that together. Honestly, it's going to be really good.
No doubt at all. Not at all. Looking forward to it. Well, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. Appreciate you listening or watching wherever you may be, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday right here on No Limit Sports.
All right.